Welcome to episode 117 of the Valley Sports Talk podcast. I find it very funny how our last episode, which was like a month and a half ago now, we titled it, or I titled it because I published it. The Oilers are in trouble, and here they are in the Stanley Cup Final. But that might not be the Oilers. That could be true, actually. If I could rename this episode today if I post it right after this that the Oilers are in trouble because the Oilers are currently down 3-2. Brandon has no camera again, like they won a month and a half ago, but we're still here.
We're rocking and rolling. I mean, we did this the same thing last year. We kind of counted the Oilers out, and we posted when they were down 0-2 against LA, and then they went on a crazy run. A lot's gone their way, with terms of, I mean, before Hyman, like they were relatively healthy. Um, they had a resurgence in Calvin Pickard for a bit come in when Stuart Skinner couldn't do it. Um, and I mean, it got them to this point, but yeah, they're in trouble here coming into Game 6.
Yeah, so obviously we do have a lot to cover because the last time we talked about this, we were 2 games into round one, and here we are in the Stanley Cup final. But what has been your sort of biggest takeaway throughout this Stanley Cup final or just Stanley Cup playoffs in general?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing is how tight it's been. There hasn't been a single sweep in this postseason, which I feel like is pretty rare. So it just shows how even kind of the league was been this year, and I think that's shown. Like the other than Washington and the Capitals. Oh,
Oh,
that's the
same
same
team.
team. Other than Washington and the Jets, I mean, the points were pretty even. Like there wasn't that many 100-point teams. There was a lot of teams battling right till the end for a playoff spot, and all of our wildcard teams this year showed a lot of fight, like Montreal, Ottawa, Minnesota, and St. Louis. So I think that there was a lot of exciting series, partially because there was no sweeps. It was all very close, and it was fun to watch.
Yeah,
But we got the same two teams as last year, so
yeah, that's like it has been probably one of the more entertaining Stanley Cup finals that I've personally watched in a little bit. Except that I'm never the biggest fan of repeat finals unless it's obviously Pittsburgh in 2016, 2017. But like I don't know. I just like to see new teams in the finals, you know what I mean? Like I don't like watching the same teams go at it. It sort of is like a bad sequel almost, even though this has probably been a better finals than last year. But I don't know if you have a different opinion on that, but I always like seeing new teams try to battle it out for the finals.
I kind of agree with you. Like obviously repeats aren't the best, but this one I feel like is a bit of an exception just because last year wasn't very entertaining. Like, yeah, it went to seven and we had the 3-0 comeback, but none of the games, if you go back and check the scores, none of the games were relatively close in that 7 game series. Where this one's had 3 overtimes. The other 2 games were kind of duds, but it's been a lot more entertaining than last year, so I'm kind of okay with it.
Um, what's your thoughts on the game tonight? Like I don't know. I probably will end up posting this immediately right after we record. Um, what is your sort of thoughts going into this game six tonight?
I'm torn because everybody and their dog is saying Florida's going to win tonight. And I feel the same way, which is why I think Edmonton might win because everybody's on Florida. Everyone thinks Florida's going to close out. It's at home. Stanley Cup's in the building. You don't want to go back to Edmonton for game seven. Those fans are nuts. Their fans have been electric this whole playoffs, been in the Stanley Cup finals, especially. They've been loud. Um, so I don't think you want to go back to that if you're Florida. So they're going to come out just as hungry as Edmonton, I feel like. But for all those reasons, it kind of feels like Edmonton's going to win, right? But I do think Florida comes out with this one. I just think Bob's so much more steady than anything they got going over there. Like if for Edmonton to win, I feel like they got to score 4 or 5 goals because Florida's been able to score that many every game. Florida's scored at least 2 goals in every first period of this series, so I feel like for Edmonton to win, they got to come out of that first period tied or ahead. You kind of shut that crowd down. Don't let them get into it early. The one thing that's good for the Oilers, I will say though, is Florida kind of, as dominant as they've been the last 2 years, they do struggle to close out, right? They had a lead against Toronto, game six at home. They lost it. They had a 3-0 lead against Carolina, lost it. Obviously, last year they had a 3-0 lead against Edmonton, and Edmonton clawed their way back. So they do have trouble closing at times. So I think that's a point you got to look forward to if you're Edmonton.
Yeah, I totally agree with most of what you said. They do have issues with closing out. We've seen that in the past, like you mentioned, the two times this year and the one big one last year. But this, I don't know, this Florida team. Like they last year were good. Obviously, they won the Stanley Cup, but this year it seems like they almost. I think they're a better team than they were last year.
I
Um,
agree.
it might be because the additions of like Seth Jones on D, obviously Brad Marchand has been a um, massive addition to the fact that you got guys like him and Sam Bennett who are doing majority of your scoring, where a guy like Sasha Barkov, your captain and you're 100% your best player on this team, doesn't have a goal in this series. And like that's hasn't been talked about because he hasn't had to do that. He's been playing more of a shutdown role where he's held McDavid to only one goal in this finals. So just seeing those additions like Seth Jones has been great on D and what Marchand's been able to do on that line with Lusteroin and Lundell. It's been the best third line probably we've seen in a while in this league. Just shows you like how savvy of a team this Florida team is and how much Bill Zito, the GM, is willing to risk it all and go after it. And they look poised unless they, like you said, they cannot close out. To win back-to-back Stanley Cups, being the first team, obviously, since Pittsburgh a few years ago, to do that, which doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, it just shows you how important depth is because the playoffs is such a long run, and to make it all the way, your top guys aren't going to be red hot for 2 months straight, right? So you need that depth scoring, and for your depth to be Lundell, like Luostarinen and Marchand, for that to be your depth, you're in a pretty good spot. So I think it just shows why they've been so dominant, and it's also shown like it's proven to be for Edmonton too. Like they got here because Corey Perry's lighting it up. Like Adam Henrique's been good. Connor Brown's been good. Kasperi Kapanen. Like they've had a lot of good impact players too. I just feel like the difference in this series is you haven't been seeing that bottom six scoring for Edmonton's kind of disappeared, where Florida's still going. Like Marchand has been the best player in this series, in my opinion.
Yeah, like you just mentioned, like in the last three series against LA, um, oh my God, who did they play second round?
Vegas and Dallas.
Vegas and Dallas, you've seen that depth scoring for the Oilers be one of the main reasons why they're here. That and they had Calvin Pickard playing well, then he got hurt, and then Skinner finally started playing well, and now obviously they're going back to Skinner tonight. But the depth scoring hasn't been there in the series, and I think that's basically just the fact that we've seen them score in the last three series, but I just think that Florida has even more depth than the Oilers' depth, and it's sort of outclassing them or outmatching them where these lines are getting overwhelmed. You see guys like Podkolzin and Arvidsson has been good in the times he's played. Jeff Skinner doesn't look like a playoff guy out there. Kapanen's been in and out of the lineup. These guys who have been going in the last, three series are getting outmatched and outperformed in this series, which is one of the main reasons. And I also don't think we have seen a McDavid moment in this series. He only has one goal, and I think that Edmonton would expect more, and I think fans or us hockey fans expect more out of a player like McDavid's class to only have one goal in this series, and the goal didn't even really matter, or it did matter, but like it was a goal to put them within two in the third period. I mean, I feel like we haven't seen a McDavid moment, and I feel like in order for the Oilers to come back and win seven, McDavid has to be the McDavid we know who he is and take over these games six and seven.
100%. I got a question for you. In terms of coaching, how do you feel Knobloch's compared to Maurice? Because personally, I feel like, especially in games 5 and 6, there's been a lot of questionable decisions. Um, I mean, obviously, Kasperi Kapanen isn't like someone in your future, but he has been playing pretty well. and you took him out of the lineup for no reason. We talked about it in person on the golf course that Stetcher played 4 minutes of game five, and then you go to him in game six instead of Klingberg, and we haven't heard anything about a Klingberg injury. So if you're going to sit a guy like Stetcher all game long and then go back to in the next game, why are you sitting him in the first place? Like I feel like there's been a lot of questionable coaching decisions. I don't know if you have any opinions on it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I feel like Knobloch's use of his lineup has been very poor in this series, for the reasons that you exactly said. I don't think Kapanen has been the reason that you're losing. So taking him out of the lineup
No.
the other night was very confusing, especially because he has been looking well with on that second line with Draisaitl. And I think they're putting Evander Kane up there today. Kapanen is drawing back into the lineup. Um,
Yeah, Vander Kane was on the fourth line the
yeah,
last.
so Evander Kane has been a bit of a disappointment. He's not really doing the Evander Kane things that we see him do. I think he probably is obviously dealing with something since he hasn't played really all year. But getting back to Knobloch, the Stetcher one is a bit more confusing. Like, sure, you can throw a forward in there to try to shake up, get a guy that's been sitting a couple games. He probably has a bit of legs, but the Stetcher one is crazy unless like they just haven't came out with a Klingberg injury based off the fact that it's the finals. Like, it makes no sense on why he played no shifts in the second, third, and overtime in that one game, and he stayed in the lineup for the next game. I feel like I'd rather have a guy like Klingberg, and sure, Klingberg did have a rough game two, I think, two or three right before Stetcher came out, but.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like a puck moving defenseman like Klingberg is a good thing to have on a third line pair, especially whenever Bouchard is taking a lot of heat, which he has actually been very good this series. I'll give Bouchard the credit, but um, I feel like having a guy like Klingberg over Stetcher is a better third line. I don't know a word to use. Third line
Matchup.
matchup because he's gonna get matched up probably against lower lines where he can really use that puck moving mentality to sort of get chances for the Edmonton Oilers. But it was a very weird and confusing decision for his Knobloch's lineup changes these past few games.
Yeah, I mean, like you made a good point. Like Klingberg's a puck moving defenseman, and you've watched, especially the last two games, Edmonton has looked dominated. They're hemmed in their own zone. They can't get the puck out. Florida's dumping and chasing. If Edmonton gets it out, it's there's no pressure going the other way. It's like a dump and change and then right back into Edmonton's zone. I feel like a guy like Klingberg could kind of help that out, de-stress some situations, get the puck out, get it into Florida's zone and start building momentum. Just even a small puck moving third pairing guy like that would could possibly change the series, you know? So I don't
Yeah,
know. I haven't heard if he's in or not tonight. I don't know if they've
Lindbergh
made
is
a
in.
he's in? Okay.
Lindbergh and
So
Kappen are both in. Stetcher and Arvidsson are out.
obviously he's not hurt, so that just makes it even more confusing. I don't know.
Yeah, and even like going back to like coaching, I think Maurice's defensive system has been so perfectly matched up perfectly against this Edmonton team because they like to space the ice and carry the puck, and Edmonton has not been able to do that this series. They've been forced to dump the puck in, which is not something they usually do. I think they're one of the least teams in the NHL this year that use the dump in play or like I don't know. There was a weird stat where they like measured like how many times per game a team will dump the puck in and chase it,
Okay, yeah.
but change. But Edmonton was like one of the least teams that utilized that tactic. So I think that's based off the fact that the Florida Panthers have been able to control the skating of McDavid. We haven't been able to see McDavid really get his legs going, or even Draisaitl or Nugent Hopkins, where they've been forced to dump this in. And I think a guy like Bobrovsky, who's really obviously a veteran in this league, he's still a very top goalie in this league, where he has been able to control the puck down low, and Florida's coming out right away with the puck before Edmonton can establish that forecheck, and it's really I feel like been one of the main reasons why we haven't seen McDavid get going because he hasn't had this space and he's been forced to sort of dump the puck in and go get it, where Florida's been just able to limit that. I don't know if you've seen that
100,
or.
100%. And just because I want to hear you rant, I'm going to ask you one more question about the Stanley Cup, this matchup here, and then we can move on to some other teams. But um, if you had uh, oh God, I'm blanking. What's the name of the most valuable
Conn
playoff
Smythe?
performer? Conn Smythe. Why was it? I was thinking Calder, but it's not. That's rookie. If you had your Conn Smythe ballot and you don't know what happens in game 6 or 7, who's your top three?
In 3-1, three being Draisaitl, two being Marchand, and one Bennett. The reason I put Bennett over Marchand is based off that I feel like Marchand has really came alive this series where Bennett's done it over the course of the playoffs. So the Conn Smythe is the MVP of the playoffs, not the MVP of the Stanley Cup. I would be completely okay if it went to Bennett or Marchand. Like I could see an argument for both, but based off the fact that I think that Bennett has oh my God, he has the record, made the record for most away goals in a playoff with 12,
13.
13. Sorry. He leads the Stanley Cup Finals or Stanley Cup playoffs in goals. I just feel like he's been consistently their best player over all the rounds where Marchand has had his moments in the Leafs series and this series more. So that is sort of my thinking on the ballot where I believe that Bennett's been the better player throughout every round.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention how you have Draisaitl over McDavid.
Yeah, I think I know we talked about it yesterday,
Okay.
golfing again, but I think McDavid, like, yes, he's been good, but he hasn't been the game-changing player we know he can be. So I'm a bit disappointed in that. And I also think just Drysdale has been the guy that whenever they have won games, obviously he set the record for most overtime game winners. You know, he is the guy that will close out these games for them. We've seen it in that with four and. You know, he was snubbed to the heart, maybe he wasn't, but I think he's been Edmonton's best player in the playoffs.
Yeah, so that kind of wraps up the Stanley Cup unless you have anything else.
No, I'm good.
There has been quite a bit of news around the NHL since we've last recorded, believe it or not. One, we had a big trade. The Rangers and the Ducks. We had Chris Kreider and a fourth going to Anaheim for a third round pick and Carey Terrence. For those of you who don't know, Carey Terrence is a 20-year-old second round pick of the Anaheim Ducks. He has played in the OHL. Probably hasn't put up the numbers he's been looking for, although you can make that case that Erie hasn't been a good team in the 4 years he's been there, but he's never been a point of game player in the OHL, which is kind of concerning, especially given the fact he's played in it for 4 years. Um, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I actually don't mind this trade for Anaheim. I know a lot of people saw that are thinking Chris Kreider doesn't make Anaheim better, but I think it does. I think Chris Kreider is a good player in this league. Obviously, he's a goal scorer. He's got blazing speed. He is a bit older, but I think that Anaheim is doing their rebuild right, where they're at the point now where they have the top end talent, they have the young talent that they need these guys to that can sort of be the voice of reasoning in that room. The veteran presence. The guys that have been surrounded with are great. They got Gudis. They got guys like Alex Killorn won a cup. Chris Kreider's played in big playoff games. He's never won a cup, but he has been in game sevens in those playoff games. You got guys like Ryan Strome, Frankfurt, Toronto, and then you got the young guys. Like I think Zegras can bounce back. Obviously, I think Leo Carlsson is going to have an 80 to 90 point season this year. I just think he's going to just keep getting better as he gets older. You got guys like Mason McTavish, Owen Zellweger, Chase Lacombe, Lucas Dostal or Dostal, whatever. He's a great young goalie who just keeps getting better. Like I am really excited for Anaheim's future. I don't get to watch many of their games being that they are in California and we're Eastern Standard Time here, but I am just like really excited and I think they could be a sneaky playoff team next year. I know it probably might not be sneaky, but I know a lot of people are probably still sleeping on them based off how bad they've been the last few years. But I think that Anaheim is doing it right, where they finally have that young talent, and they finally are getting like role players that can mesh into that lineup and fill spots. And I think Kreider's a great a great fit over there.
Yeah, I'm not going to give any more into it on the Anaheim side because you basically said what I was going to say. Like a lot of people, like you said, are saying that Kreider isn't the player he used to be, but he doesn't need to because of all the players you've already mentioned. They've got all the talent. They just need an old veteran voice who's been there and done that, right? So I think this is perfect for them. I don't know if you agree with this, but I think it's a little confusing for the Rangers side because you did just like you have a young-ish Adam Fox. You have a lot of talent in New York. Yes, they had a bad year this year, but I still think that like they're a good team, and I still think they could be a playoff team. And you just signed Igor Shesterkin to a massive deal, and to kind of start trading away these players. I know even like there's been some rumblings that Mika Zibanejad's on the table. Like I don't see the direction. Are they trying to be bad? Are they trying to be good? I'm not sure. This move kind of shocked me a little bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was shocked. He's been, I feel like even when they were bad, he was talked about being traded a lot. Like his name always got brought up. I'm more thinking about the fact that they weren't very good last year. The year after they won the President's Trophy, I think they're sort of trying to change the culture a bit. Bring in new guys. Obviously, they brought in Mike Sullivan. He's obviously a big voice in that room, being where he's what he's won, what he's done, the name that comes behind it. So I don't think Sullivan had a say in the trade, because obviously he coached Kreider at the Four Nations for Team USA, but I more think it was just a sort of culture shakeup where they're maybe trying to get a bit younger. I have seen a lot and heard a lot that the Rangers are one of the teams to watch out for a possible offer sheet in the offseason, whether that's a guy like Paterka or somebody else, where I think they're just trying to get a bit younger and sort of change that culture. They have the guys like Panarin. They have Adam Fox, who's still good. I heard they're also shopping Mika Zibanejad, so it'll be interesting to see where he ends up or if he does end up somewhere. But they are still a good team, and I think they can bounce back next year, which is also why I'm really hoping that they give the Penguins their first round pick this year, because I think they're going to be a better team than what they were last year. Where I just think that this trade sort of was something where they needed to change things up. It hasn't been working. Kreider's been there for a while, where I just think it was time to change something up, and Chris Kreider was just the first one to go. I wouldn't be surprised if there is one or two more minor moves or even a major move, like I said, with Mika Zibanejad, but I think it's just sort of a roster shakeup and a culture change in New York.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I guess I worded it wrong. I wasn't shocked that Kreider got traded. I'm just shocked of the direction because I feel like you're not hiring Mike Sullivan to do a rebuild,
No, and
right?
I
So
I don't think they will go into a rebuild. I think it's more of like I think the Rangers are in for a very active offseason, where you have to bring in a guy like Mike Sullivan. Guys like Artemi Panarin is not getting any older or any younger. Geez. Adam Fox is in the prime of his career. You got young D like Keandre Miller and Braden Schneider, who are just gonna keep getting better, and even some forwards like it'll be interesting to see what happens with Lafreniere. His name has came up a bit. Can he bounce back? You got guys like, oh my God, there's another guy there. Oh no, never mind. I think
you
that,
said Capo. No,
no,
he's
I
not
wasn't
even.
gonna say Kako or Cheeto or Heedle. Oh, you got JT Miller still there. Like this,
Yeah.
this is a team that needs to start winning and needs to start winning soon, because these guys are about to be like Panarin, Zibanejad, and JT Miller are all on the wrong age of 30, where they have to probably get a bit younger. And I would not be surprised if, like I mentioned earlier, the Rangers go out for a guy like JJ Peterka.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of moving along to another Metro team. Noah's Pittsburgh Penguins have been in the news the past little while. Obviously, they hired a new head coach, Dan Muse, who, quote unquote, from Kyle Dubas, said that what separated him from the rest of the options was his ability to develop players, which basically means rebuild, right? You're not going to hire this guy if you're trying to be good right now. Either they're trying to develop players and kind of look towards the future. So as a Penguins fan, kind of hearing that they're hiring a guy based on his ability to develop players, what do you think of the hire?
Yeah, I had no issues with it. He was a guy that, wasn't talked about. Like he wasn't one of the guys at all that Pittsburgh beat writers, which I follow on Twitter, were talking about. It was DJ Smith and Mitch Love, the two
Yeah.
assistants. And so Dan Muse's name sort of came out of nowhere. And it took me a bit to sort of, not a bit to get over the fact that they hired him, because I didn't mind it, or I didn't know much about him, so I had to do some research about it. But after I did research, I have no issues with it. He actually coached Rutger McGroarty at the U.S. National Development Program. So he has that sort of mindset of developing these young players into better players. So, like you said, Pittsburgh is not going to be winning cups anytime soon in the next few years. But I don't think I use the word rebuild, and yes, it's a rebuild, but I think it's a mini rebuild. They're obviously not going to be tearing down it whatsoever. You can't do that with guys like Crosby, Malkin, and Letang still there. So you're never going to go into a full rebuild. But I think Dubas has the right mindset where you accumulate all these draft picks. Like they have three first round picks in the next 2 years. They have
Yeah.
four second round picks in the next 2 years. Where, I don't think the Pittsburgh Penguins will make all these picks. I think that Kyle Dubas is going to be very active on trades. I would not be surprised if this offseason you see more trades by the Pittsburgh Penguins than free agent signings on July 1st. Um, I think Pittsburgh's at the point where they aren't going to be using these draft picks for players now. They're going to be using it for young guys. Like you saw them get last year. You saw them get Tommy Novak and Philip Tomasino from the Nashville Predators. These are young guys that are already in the league. They've been linked to guys like Marco Rossi, his time seems to be coming to an end in Minnesota. I think he fits the timeline perfect. He's a 23-year-old RFA. Um, He'll be here whenever sort of they start to get better again. Even guys like JJ Peterka, they have had their name in, but there's this one player, Isaac Howard. He's a Tampa Bay first rounder. Doesn't seem like he'll be getting signed there. Pittsburgh's name has been thrown around a lot there. It's very similar to what happened last year with Rucker McGroarty, where he wasn't going to sign in Winnipeg, so they traded Yeager for him. Where I think it's guys like that Dubas is going to be going after, and I think going back to the what started this conversation, where I think Dan Muse is the perfect coach for this where he already has that sort of coaching ability of being able to develop these young players. And obviously having guys like Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Brian Rust, Rickard Rakell, which Eric Carlson, I don't think Eric Carlson will be on this team much longer moving forward. But these guys are still there, and they're the perfect type of players. Obviously, I said three Hall of Famers there, four Hall of Famers if you include Carlson. Um, who will be there to help these players get into the league and develop. And I know this next season for Pittsburgh isn't going to be good, but like just seeing like this is like a type of team that I haven't seen since being a fan of Pittsburgh, where they are getting these new names, where I'm getting excited. I'm doing research on prospects on these young players, like it's something that I've never done before. So it's a bit of a weird or a new scenario for me, but it's like I'm not down in the dumps where I know Pittsburgh is going to be a bad team next year. Like I'm just excited to see the next step that they take, and I'm actually very happy with how Dubas has handled it so far.
It is a lot of fun, like coming from experience, like when Mitch and Willie and Austin Matthews and all those guys were coming up. It is fun to watch. You have no expectations for them. You don't care. Like obviously you care, but you don't care if they do good or bad. You just want to see the development. But yeah, like you said, it's just nice to see Pittsburgh have a direction, right? They've kind of been in like the mid limbo dead pack for a bit. And although they might be there again this year, I actually do think they will be. At least they have a direction. Like they're trying to develop. And stuff like that. You kind of answered my next question in that, but I do want to hear your thoughts. Like you said, you think it's going to be a mini rebuild because obviously they're not getting rid of any of the big boys. But in saying that, it was reported that the Penguins won't be re-signing Malkin next year, even though Malkin hasn't said if he's going to retire or not. The Penguins still said they're probably not going to re-sign him. It's kind of weird to hear that a year in advance, like to just throw that out there and to know that for Malkin personally, he won't be coming back. If you're Pittsburgh, like do you look for a trade to not lose Malkin for nothing? And do you think any of the other guys might follow suit?
I don't. The only way I can see um this getting traded, Malkin getting traded, and I'm like I think there's like a less than 5% chance he gets traded. But if he's having a great year at the trade deadline and Pittsburgh is like, I don't think they're gonna make the playoffs, but you never know. They could be 5 points out of a playoff spot or something. Like, I don't think they will be, but there's a scenario where they
Yeah,
could.
yeah, yeah.
The Metro is not very strong right now, other than like Washington and Carolina. The Metro is very wide open, but I think there's the chance that if Gino is having an amazing year, or even the fact that he's gonna retire a Penguin, whether it's if he does play another year with another team, which I'll get into that in a second, or if he's traded, he's gonna sign that 1 day contract or he's gonna retire as a Penguin. I also would not be surprised if after this year he goes back to the KHL, plays a year or two there, because also think this could be Ovi's last year, and I
Yeah.
think those guys have always sort of wanted to play together, considering they played against each other. Where, um, anyways, getting back to the trade thing, the only way I see it happening is if Gino says, okay, I'm going to the KHL next year, or I'm retiring from the NHL. I want to play for the cup one more time. And he's having a good year. Because I don't think if he's not having a good year, I don't think the Penguins are going to trade him for pennies on the dollar or something like that. Like, I think they're going to only trade him if he's having a good year. And also getting to the point where I think I would not be surprised if this is Gino's last year in the NHL. We've seen the steady decline, or the slight decline of his play the last 3 years, where he's not a point per game scorer anymore, where I don't even think he has enough legs to play center anymore. So I also would not be surprised if he starts this season on the wing, on the second line wing, with Tommy Novak as a center. Um, but I am getting to the point where, is it going to be hard for me to watch an NHL, a Pittsburgh team without Gino? Yes, I grew up watching him. I have a lot of obvious childhood memories of watching Gino on the Pens, but I think it's getting to the point where he's almost done in the NHL. So do I think he gets traded? No. Do I think he plays for another NHL team? No. Do I think he goes back to Russia after this year and plays in the KHL? Yes. Short story.
Yeah, I think
To
yeah,
sum up
I
that
think
rant.
I think he'll play in the KHL too. I think I don't know. Yeah, obviously I just thought it was a little weird to throw that out there kind of like a
I
year
thought it
later.
was, if it looked weird too, but obviously you have to look to the future. He's 39. He's going to be turning 40 midway through the year next year. Um,
Yeah.
he doesn't have much time left in the NHL. So was it weird
No.
that, like, Josh Yohe, the a Pittsburgh beat reporter, came out with it? Yes. And obviously, actually today he released another story saying that he might have jumped to conclusions and that the Penguins are still undecided. So I don't know
Well,
what
yeah,
he was
because
doing.
I'm sure as soon as that was reported, the Penguins went after him. We're like, hey man, what are you doing?
Yeah, it was very weird that the Penguins would come out and say this before free agency this year even starts, or like this,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But yeah, I,
No, I agree.
I'm at the point where I know Crosby probably has 2, 3 years left. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Crosby plays till he's 45, just the way he trains and the way he treats his body and stuff like that. But like I was talking about, like, Pittsburgh is going in a new direction where these guys aren't going to be on their team the next time that they are competing for a Stanley Cup. So I'm at the
Yeah,
point where I just
100%.
have to, maybe this season I watch more Penguins games, or I watch every single Penguins games. I stay up till 1 a.m. in the morning. Even if I have school the next day, watching these guys, because just gotta cherish these last few years of watching, the three guys I grew up watching play hockey.
Yeah, and to wrap up on the Penguins, we were just talking about Malkin and the vets. Other than Ricker McGroarty, because everyone knows that name, who's one potential breakout player for Pittsburgh this year?
I like we saw him a lot at the end of the year. He was a point per game player in 9 games he played at the end of the year with Pittsburgh. And that's Billy Koivunen. He's a former second round pick of Carolina. He came over in the Jake Gensel trade. He was named the AHL Rookie of the Year this year. I'm very excited to watch him. He's a very fast skater, and he was playing with Sid to end the year whenever McGroarty got hurt. And he looked like he had a lot of chemistry with Sid early on. I mean, playing with Sid's probably pretty easy. You just kind of go to spots and he will find you. But a guy like that is a Billy Koivunen is a guy I'm really excited to watch this year. I think he makes Pittsburgh out of camp. Another guy, I guess, is Harrison Brunick. He is a second round pick last year, who they also got. They didn't get it in the trade with Carolina, but he was the second round pick that they used to get him. He's a really tall puck moving defenseman, and those are two guys that I think are really excited. I'm really excited to watch. I don't think he makes the Penguins next year. I think he'll be in the AHL, or I think he's got to either be in the NHL or WHL because he's still young. So I think he'll be back in the WHL. But if you want me to say one name who I think is going to be in Pittsburgh next year, who I'm excited to watch, is going to be Ville Koivunen.
Yeah, looking forward to it. It should be an interesting year for
We have
Pittsburgh.
4 minutes left. Since I have talked a lot this podcast, and my throat is
You have. I've
starting,
been buzzing you with
we're going to
questions.
talk for the last 3 minutes, 3.5 minutes about Mitch Marner.
Oh no. Okay,
Yes.
let's talk about
So
Mitchie.
it came out 2 days ago. It was a St. Louis reporter, which was really easy, which was really weird, but
It
um
was strange.
apparently he's a very credible source from what I've heard. It came out that which I think me and you or most people already knew this that Mitch Marner was not coming back, but this guy like said like it's confirmed Mitch Marner is not coming back to Toronto. Like obviously I don't think we were really that surprised, but what were your sort of thoughts whenever you saw this guy come out and finally say it?
I mean, yeah, again, I wasn't even.
Could be true, could be not.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's not even like who knows, right? He's like any team can. He might not get an offer he's looking for, except for Toronto will be able to offer that 8 years. And if he doesn't get it, he also reported that Mitch might be looking for a 4 year deal,
4 year deal, I saw that, yes.
which
Which is
is
until he's 32, so he'd be able to probably sign one more contract.
kind of smart, but just shows that. And I'm not digging at him. This isn't a dig, but he is definitely one looking for the money. So he kind of doesn't fit in Toronto anyways because we've gone through the experiment of paying people and it doesn't work when you pay that many people that much money. So I mean yeah, again, yeah, it's not a surprise. And if Mitch wants the money, he's gonna have to go elsewhere. The thing that kind of shocked me was that I don't know if it was the same reporter or a different reporter, but said Mitch is going to the West.
Yeah, I saw that
It
too.
it seems like he wants a total reset,
Which
get
makes
out of the
sense. I can
East,
see it.
go to the West. The only reason it kind of surprises me is because I thought Carolina was a big bidder here in this Mitch Marner free
Yes,
agency, but
I've seen that.
um, so I mean it might not be the case, obviously, if he wants to go to the West, but he's got the right to say wherever he wants to go. I mean, people were getting upset that he might go to Carolina because he knocked a trade there and then might go there in free agency. But you got to understand, his wife was giving birth. I wouldn't want to root up and leave as my wife's giving birth to a child either. So it kind of makes sense why he stayed in Toronto. And now that their son's been born and he's all healthy. They can pick and choose where they want to go. I think Vegas is the front runner by far, personally.
Yeah, I was just about to
Um,
ask you that. We have a minute left. Give me your two. I'll give you them after my two. Give me your top two teams that you think are gonna that between the two, and then give me one sleeper. Like one
so
that hasn't been talked about as much that you wouldn't be surprised.
I think my two, if I had to like put money down on it, would be probably the two. I don't know if LA is the favorite, one of the top two favorites, but I do think LA and then Vegas is definitely a favorite. I think Vegas makes a lot of sense. They have a lot of gritty defensive guys, so they don't really need that anymore. They can go out and get like a point guy like Mitch Marner. I think he'd fit well in that team. LA, I think, makes a lot of sense too, just to try and get them over the hump of the first round, even though Mitch has problems with that himself. My sleeper, who I picked right from the beginning, this is Utah. I think Utah is one piece away from contending for a wild card spot. And I think Mitch could help that out.
Yeah, I'll quick. We have probably 30 seconds left, but I agree. I think LA and Vegas are my two favorites, and my sleeper team is gonna be a team we already talked about. It's gonna be Anaheim. I would not be
Yeah.
surprised. But with that, we will wrap up. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you leave a like, subscribe. Hopefully, we'll be back next week. Honestly,